We got a Friday morning get-together, a football Friday gathering here on Birds 365. And the countdown to Eagle weekend action is not as far as it usually is. Saturday action against the Dallas Cowboys coming to town. And I'm still not sure exactly what the game is going to look like. You would hope that you'd have a better guess with only 20 some odd hours to go. John McMullen, my partner. How about the coach clinging to his competitive advantage?
Yeah,
Damn, he loves that competitive advantage.
It really does. That's what, it's tremendous. Very advantageous, as we were discussing before the show, Jody, in a meaningless game to not tell everybody who's playing. And look, I don't get it, but it's one of his things. He's talked about it all year, dating back to real issues where, where's Landon Dickerson going to start right guard or left guard after Isaac Seumalo got hurt, things like that. But this stuff doesn't affect the other team. I mean, the Eagles know that from playing all these goofy machinations of teams they don't know who the quarterback's going to be to the day before the game because of COVID. They've been through it all from the other end of the spectrum, and we asked them the questions. Well, how do you prepare? You don't know, and they say it's about us. You don't focus on it. You just prepare. They have an offense. They're going to run. They're going to have a DNA, whatever you want to call it, a scheme. You just prepare for that. Well, what do you think the other team does?
Is doing when you're keeping your cards close to the vest, Coach Sirianni. Of course, they're handling it the same exact way that you do.
Yeah, so it's, I kind of let it roll off my back because, as I said, everybody's got their things. That's one of his things. He's latched on the competitive advantage pretty early this season, and he hasn't come off it, and he believes these things are an advantage. I don't agree with him, but if it makes them feel better, it's like a sugar pill. If it makes them feel better, what's the harm?
And, oh, by the way, there's no real downside to playing your cards close to the vest and not telling anybody what you're going to do. Are you garnering a major competitive advantage? You don't think so. I don't think so. But Sirianni seems to think so. And if he wants to misguidedly continue to believe that, it's not like he's hurting the Eagles at all by doing so. He's just bothering guys like you and me, who do this for a living, who would like to have something of substance to talk about rather than, well, we don't really know who the Eagles are going to play.
And when you take that sugar pill, it's not going to hurt you, but it's not going to help you either, unless it is from a mental standpoint. Maybe he gets it. Maybe he gets something from a mental standpoint. Maybe that's the positive of it. But the Dallas Cowboys aren't sitting around hand-wringing, worrying about who the Eagles are going to sit, who they're going to play. And by the way, from Dallas's perspective, it's starting to look like somebody talked some sense into Jerry Jones as well, because all of a sudden, key players aren't going to play for them as well. Micah Parsons, we talked about the COVID list. Teron Smith, they didn't do it early like the Eagles did. So those guys are almost 100% to be ruled out. And so, when you start to talk about, okay, you're not going to play your left tackle, or why are you going to play your right tackle? Why are you going to play Zach Martin, a Hall of Fame right guard? Why, you start talking about that. And I think ultimately we are going to get sort of a preseason environment. Again, it can't be preseason because you don't have the 80, 90 men to rely on. So certain guys do have to play, but so maybe that'll be the most interesting part to see who Nick Sirianni does rest completely and who has to go out there and play. I think it's self-evident. I mean, guys, veteran players, they know how to prepare. And they know they're going to be ready. The Jason Kelsey's, the Fletcher Coxes. As I said with Kelsey, though, because of the consecutive game streak, you might want to keep that going if you get him back off the COVID list. So there's interesting little tweaks throughout the roster. But the most important part is the quarterback. And maybe to me at least, maybe Devontae Smith, because they're young players and they need to continue to grow, but they're also very important players. I was thinking about this last night, Jody. Could you imagine if Devontae Smith sprains his ankle, high ankle sprain in this game, and you got to go into a playoff game with no Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins as your number one and Jalen Reagor's your number two and Greg Ward's I mean, I don't want him near the field. I think of all the players on this team, I was thinking about it, I don't want him near the field against the Dallas Cowboys. That's just my personal.
Yeah, the drop off from his level of performance to his replacement's level of performance might be greater than anyone on the Philadelphia Eagles. Doesn't mean he's the best player on the Eagles, but the person you would have to plug in to replace him, the differential between those two might be the greatest. I think you're absolutely right. You mentioned about potential mental advantage. Did Nick tip his hand a little yesterday? Because he was talking about, hey, it's all about the process. It's what we do. It's the fact that we've been doing this the entire season in training, and these guys come mentally prepared every single day. It's not like, hey, I got a chance to play this week, so maybe I'll go a little bit harder. Ooh, got a chance to play this week. Is he referring to backups when he says something like that? Guys who don't get many snaps, all of a sudden getting that many more snaps. It's the closest thing we've come to getting Nick Sirianni to say, yeah, I'm not playing all my starters. Certain guys are going to be out in this game. They'll be on the bench. They'll be in COVID protocol. We won't rush them back. Whatever the situation is, he kind of tipped this out a little bit. He wouldn't give us exact numbers. We want to know exactly how many guys. Give us a list, coach, so we can look at it. Who's playing, who's not, who's playing some, who's coming out early. He's not about to do that, but he did kind of tip his hand yesterday in his meeting with you guys.
Well, that's interesting, Joe. First of all, let me give you kudos for listening to that, because Nick was filibustering yesterday. I mean, he was going on and on and on. And it was easy to turn out. I think, in 15 minutes, he answered about 4 questions. So he was just deflecting left and right. So, yeah, good for you picking up on that. I mean, they're playing. And by they're playing, I mean the young guys. And if the veterans do play, it's going to be for a very short period. And then you're going to see the Milton Williams of the world and the Zach McPhersons and such and so forth. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good position to be in. You get these guys some good. It's an advantage for their development. I think that makes the most sense. Nick has brought up earlier in the week that he's only faced this circumstance once as an assistant coach when he was just starting out with Todd Haley, who, by the way, got a job with the USFL. Interesting. He dropped the Todd Haley reference, and then he's back. He's a USFL coach yesterday. And he mentioned that they started their guys. So he understands this rest versus rust argument. And I think the league as a whole has changed since that time. I think we talk about this in the preseason when we're talking about, okay, who's going to play. And seemingly more and more and more teams default to, we're not playing anybody because, again, we don't have the time we once did to prepare like we wanted to. So the goal has shifted from preparation almost to let's keep our key guys as healthy as possible for when it really, really counts. I certainly don't think that's going to change for the postseason, which is more important than the regular season if you can get there. So I don't see that mentality shifting from the Eagles. And this, by the way, is an organizational decision. This isn't just Nick Sirianni. This is now Arshta Noda. This is Howie Roseman. This is Jeffrey Lurie. This is everybody. This is the sports science people telling them, now let's do this, let's do that.
Preservation over preparation is what you're talking about here. And yes, it's become prevalent in the National Football League, even more so in other sports, the NBA. I had if somebody had told me load management 15 years ago. I
Yeah.
thought it might have been a trip to the bathroom that you were talking about, as a matter of fact. But now it is a significant sports term that we use a lot, more so in the NBA than any other. But why couldn't it be applicable to the NFL? If there is a sport that deserves load management, it'd be the one where there's physical contact, collisions on every single play. That's where I think you could actually use more load management than any other sport. So.
Yeah, it's interesting, the terminology. They don't really use load management in the NFL. They use, if you think about, Fletcher Cox and all the Veterans Day and Lane Johnson and the maintenance days, they go that direction. But, it's the same thing. It's the same philosophy. And you can thank Greg Popovich for it more than anybody else with the San Antonio Spurs, because they had their great run, and at the end of it, Tim Duncan was getting up there and Tony Parker was getting up there, and it made a lot of sense. And, oh, by the way, if you spent $300 to see Tim Duncan, you're SOL, as they say, if it was a load management day.
Right. And in the NFL, I don't know they spend that kind of money to go see an interior lineman. Not going to happen. Quarterbacks are a different animal. We all know that. So the NFL is different that way than the NBA. Star players can come in any position, any shape, any form. It's certainly a different sport, so they can use different terminology. This is, as I just called it, preservation more than anything else. You're trying to preserve the health of your players going into the most important games, which is, of course, the postseason, and you don't want to put them at risk. And that's why I don't think we've got any chance to see Jalen Hurts this weekend. I know he wants to play. No one should be surprised that Jalen Hurts stepped up and said, "Oh, I'm playing. I want to play. I expect to play. I got to continue to play."
Yeah.
Well, of course he does. But it doesn't mean he has to play or he needs to play or is going to play. That decision, as you correctly pointed out just a second ago, is an organizational one. This isn't even just Nick Sirianni and his entire staff. This goes from top all the way down. We'll get a vote on this and be able to say, some with more power than others, but this is something that's going to be decided by the Philadelphia Eagles. And I can't see a way. Do you see any way Jalen Hurts plays even like one possession? Or do you think he is completely tied to the bench?
I could see him playing a possession or two if they want to, introduce him as a starter before the game and get the big, grandiose applause and the standing ovation, that kind of pageantry, and let the fans show their appreciation. Similar to Jason Kelce. The only reason I think Jason Kelce is playing is because of his extensive streak. Yes. That's it. I mean, similar thing. So just from that, I'd leave the door open a little bit for, again, a series or two, preseason like environment, and then you would pull them and get the other ovation. And that would be more if you decided, hey, let's do that for the whole team. Let's have Fletcher out there. Let's have everybody out there for a couple series and then pull them. I could see very small way of going. I don't think it's worth it, but you never know.
If you put him out there for one series, and that's the series he rolls his ankle, how badly are you going to feel about it? I think they err very much on the side of caution. And let me ask you about one specific position that they might not even have the choice of what they're going to do, and that's offensive line. They're going to try and get Kelce up. He's in COVID protocols right now, working under the assumption that he can get cleared by early Saturday, and they know he can go in the game. He can get his start. He can play his series. They can get him out of there. But Lane did not practice again yesterday, even though he's not in COVID protocol. Dickerson did not practice yesterday, even though he's not in COVID protocols. Herbig is in COVID protocols. Jordan Mailata is the only one who got any time on the offensive line as far as the quote-unquote starters go right now. Did they split them up? You made a good point earlier saying, well, if you're not going to play your left tackle, why would you play your right tackle? You either play one or the other or both, split them up between the two. what is the Eagle offensive line going to look like after Jason Kelce comes out, which we're assuming is going to be the case? What's it going to look like for the rest of the game?
Yeah, it's a good question. You would assume Andre Dillard would start at left tackle or play the majority of time. Raven Clark at right tackle would be my guess. Maybe the most interesting would be the interior because they have at least, do you play Nate Herbig at center? I think Nate's the one guy who would play, but then again, he got banged up. So,
right. If he gets banged up and you need him to start next week, if you get him hurt and he can't play next week, now you got to be able to replace him in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Does he fall under the same auspices of everybody else? Got to protect the starters at some point, get him out, or do you expect him to play every snap of the game?
He might only because of the injury, only because he's banged up. I think in normal, if he were healthy, I think he would be one that would be playing. But you do have, they have Brett Toth who has been working at center. When Jason has his maintenance days, even when he is practicing, and he's been working at center a lot this week. Jack Anderson is there. Suo Pet is the one guy would play probably left guard. So Jack Anderson can play center. He can play guard. And then you have the guys on the practice squad and, Coyote, Awasika. You could elevate him. He can play guard. He can play right guard. He can play right tackle. Luke Jariga is a center. He's back. He's on the practice squad, so you have those options as well. Yeah, if they run for 200 yards with that grouping, let's start the statue of Jeff Stoutland.
Exactly, and for their offensive line coach. Which, by the way, to run for 200 yards, somebody's got to run. It can't just be the guys up front. Someone actually has to take the ball, and we don't even know who that's going to be yet, other than we know for sure it's not going to be Miles Sanders. Will Jordan Howard be back off the COVID list? Will Boston Scott be back off the COVID list? Which of the guys are coming up from the practice squad to get some carries? Because that's happening. Somebody's got to replace Miles Sanders. They're not going to go into the game with just Boston Scott and Howard, who was, remember, banged up before he went on the COVID list. So we're looking at least one practice squad replacement, if not two, for this weekend. All right, we are the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. It's a football Friday. That means it's time for Game Day Kracz, our bud from Sports Illustrated. We got dueling Sports Illustrated guys today. McMullen's calling in the whole team today. It's like up off the practice squad to join him for this weekend's Football Friday show. Ed Kracz will join us coming up in the next couple of minutes. And a little bit later, we'll get a national football guy on to talk about not only the Eagles, but the entire National Football League for this upcoming weekend. Because, we get Eagle-centric here. That's the case, and it should be because we are Birds 365. But there are a whole bunch of games that are going to dictate who's going to be in the playoffs and the like. So Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated is going to jump aboard. He wrote a complimentary article about the Eagles on SI.com this week. We'll talk to him about that and all the other playoff action. But first things first, Game Day Kracz. Ed Kracz joins us next here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Good day, everyone. It's Joe Krause from the JAKIB Media Network here at Neck of the Woods. So excited to introduce Krause's Coat Check, a cold IPA. It's just an incredible thing. I'm in my 18th year of Krause's Coats, and with Brian's help and Frank coming together here at Neck of the Woods, Krause's Coat Check, a cold IPA, was born on this day. We'll celebrate it on January 11th, and everyone is invited to enjoy or to meet and experience the entire JAKIB Media team, and also experience Krause's Coat Check, a cold IPA. Gentlemen, a toast, I think, to you for producing Krause's Coat Check here at Neck of the Woods.
Cheers.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
You got the Mac and Mac guys here, Joey McDonald and John McMullen on a Football Friday on Birds 365. Sometimes I hit this one right on the nose. Sometimes I need to be a little patient. I'm always wondering when I should set up our next guest because we have a scheduled time for them to join. And if you wait till they pop into the little window that you know they're ready to go, then you ask them to wait on hold for 3 minutes. So I always try and guess as to what time would be best to promo our next guest and get our short break in. Well, I almost said it. Kracz wasn't quite on time, but he isn't tremendously late. So I don't know if I should give him a hard time or not. But he looks ready. Hello, Red Kracz.
Jody, I had to restart my computer. You know, the technical problem.
If Jody was in the private chat, looking at the private chat, you would see Ed will be right here. He's got to restart his computer.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so that's on you. We can give you a hard time.
Yeah, no, I stay focused on the actual what is on the air, as including the phenomenal commercials for the Ocean Casino that we run here. But I'm just busting your balls, Ed.
Yeah, I'm wearing a black shirt today too.
By the way, if we're going to continue in that vein, is this the week that Brandon Brooks shows up?
Oh,
look at that full score, McDonald.
Yeah, well, you know, listen, they don't need Brandon Brooks, right? I mean, years past, you'd have been pleading for Brandon Brooks to come back, but their offensive line's been pretty darn good without him. But it's a weird situation with Brandon Brooks, I'll say.
I apologize for that, Ed. See, it's just an innate thing in me. John took a shot at me, so I had to take a shot back. And you happened to be in the way, so that's why you took the Brandon Brooks shot. So don't blame me, blame McMullen.
Okay, well, you know,
I'm used to that, by the way. Yeah. Everybody blames me for everything. More importantly, Ed, how much snow did you get? I want you to
I haven't been out in it. I have to go out and shovel when I'm done here. But
did you guys get off easier? I think you guys got off easier than us again. Last week, Ed Kracz got nothing, and I'm out there shoveling 3 times to get rid of this crap.
Really? I didn't even shovel. All I did was clean off the cars and
I got like 6.
Let the sun take care of the rest.
I was in the swath that got like 6 inches. I had to go out. Well, but my wife had to, so I had to do it early, and
we got 5 or 6
out
today. What kind of snow they're going to play in Saturday, you two guys? Two top flight reporters. You should know exactly how many inches are going to fall within hours of the game.
Well, I don't think it's going to snow again, so this is it. I think that crack staff at Lincoln Financial Field will have everything cleared. But who's going to play at Kracz? That's the most important issue. Nick Sirianni holding it close to the vest, competitive advantage for nobody who wants to win the game. You did a story on SI.com /NFL/Eagles. Eagle Maven, you did the job for him. What should he do? What are the main takeaways? What should Nick Sirianni do?
Well, breaking news, John. I'm playing Saturday night. I don't know if you heard that, but I mean, that's pretty much how it's going to work, I think. But, if you look at what Nick's done in his first year, going back to training camp, I mean, he always was cognizant of players' health and their safety, with the sometimes hour-long training camp practices just to keep his
how about those? We forget about those. Yeah,
and then he didn't really play anybody in the preseason, so I don't expect him to play, too many key people. But the advantage or the disadvantage now is he only has 60 players really to kind of pick from. Back in the summer when he could do these things, he had a roster of 90 players, but now he's got fewer players, so he's going to have to play some guys. I don't expect him to play these guys very long. I think he'll try to limit as many snaps as he can with some of his key players. And if you identify who some of those key players are, I mean, obviously the main ones are Jason Kelce. I think you throw him out there, keep that consecutive streak alive for games played in a row. But I don't think you play him very long. But then who's your backup center? I mean, Nate Herbig has been struggling with a knee injury. He's popped up on the injury report a few times. I mean, you could play Luke Juriga if you bring him up from the practice squad. The Eagles have those 12 players on the COVID list, so they can make some moves with the roster or their practice squad roster, which I expect them to do. Those 12 players that are on the COVID list, I'm not sure any of those guys are going to play. Maybe Kelce, like I said, you activate him and you let him keep that games played streak together. Devontae Smith, I think you let him get his 38 yards that he needs to break Deshaun Jackson's record for rookie receiving yards, albeit it'll be in 17 games versus the 16 that Deshaun did it back in 2008 when he had 912 of them. But I think you really pare back on the snaps, and outside the obvious, your veteran guys, you really have to look at the safety position too. I mean, you're very thin back there, but
you got Epsy.
Yeah, but he's pretty valuable. But you can afford to have anything happen to an Anthony Harris or a Rodney McLeod because you just don't have the depth there. But then,
real quick, Ed, let me break in real quick because before you came on, I was thinking about this and I told Jody, you mentioned Devontae Smith. He might be the most interesting of all for this reason. He should play. He's a young player. You mentioned even, he can break the team record. You want to get that done as a rookie receiver for yardage. But, man, if he sprains his ankle, I mean, there is not a bigger drop-off, I don't think, in any position. I don't think Devontae is their best player at this point. Certainly an ascending player. I think he's going to be a great player. But the drop-off at wide receiver from Devontae Smith to everybody else on this team is so cavernous. I don't know if I can risk putting him out there.
I like that. Cavernous. You're right. that is a very cavernous drop from Smitty to the rest of the receiving corps.
Wes Watkins would be wide receiver 1 in a playoff game. You're not setting up Jalen Hurts to succeed with that.
I agree with you. But listen, I mean, Devontae has been relatively healthy. We've seen with the elbow sleeve on, and, I know he's, had that elbow issue that really hasn't cost him any time. So you're just going to have to, cross your fingers. And he wants to play, obviously.
Yeah, he definitely wants to play.
Yeah. But, I think maybe they don't get him the record. I would, from a fan standpoint, I would think you'd want to see him get the record. He didn't get it last week. So, there is that caveat is, this is what he did in 16 games. It was 38 yards short. It's still the second most receiving yards from a rookie since Deshaun Jackson, slightly more than Jordan Matthews. People forget Jordan Matthews, I think, had 872 yards receiving in his rookie year of 2014. He came close. He also had 8 touchdown catches that season. Devontae's got 5. But, I would like to see this be more of a, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, get him some targets. Jalen Reagor could certainly use, a few targets. Even play John Hightower, a guy that's been on the practice squad all season, had a bit of a role last year, hasn't had one this year. Get him some targets too. So I wouldn't have a problem if they sat Devontae Smith because you fear the twisted ankle or whatever it is. And let's face it, his body frame was a big concern coming out of Alabama, the 160 pounds thing, but he's answered the bell on that. He's been healthy. But yeah, I could see them not playing him and trying to get some targets for some of these other guys.
All right, Ed Kracz, I'm going to put you to the test with your crystal ball looking into the future with a hypothetical question. This is my favorite stuff. Gardner Minshew plays real well. Same level, maybe even better than he did against the Jets when he got his one other start this year. What effect does that have on the way the Eagles continue to judge Jalen Hurts? If for the second time, someone other than Jalen steps in and looks real good with the offense, and it's kind of a piecemeal offense at that, if we've got the right read and Sirianni is going to take discretion as the better part of valor, does it increase Gardner Minshew's trade value? So during the offseason, Howie Roseman can take a victory lap after trading a player for a 6 and a year later coming back and getting a 4 in exchange for him? Or does it mean nothing at all?
I think it means something, sure. It could also work the other way. What if he comes out and doesn't have a very good game, throws 2 or 3 interceptions, and then his value decreases? But here's the thing, Jody. I'm not sure how much I'd even play Gardner Minshew in this game because should something happen,
see Reed Sinnett.
You're getting down to Reed Sinnett.
I would play. I'm not saying I would sit Minshew entirely, but I'm not sure I'd go more than a quarter or 2 with Minshew in there. And I don't know if I'd have.
Then Jalen Hurts has to be inactive. If you're going there, if you're contemplating Reed Sinnett getting into the game, that means Jalen Hurts should be in civvies for the game, that he shouldn't even be active. And by the way, you guys will get it during the afternoon on Saturday. It'll be the best inactive list the Eagles have had all year. There's going to be a bunch of talent on that. You're suggesting the starting quarterback will be on the inactive list.
Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, I wouldn't play Jalen Hurts. I mean, he looked healthy against Washington. He made that great run early. He really cut hard upfield on his left ankle. That was the issue. But Sirianni said afterward, we all know that he has an ankle problem. And why would you put him out there, to be honest? I mean, another guy that wants to play, I'm sure. But why? And then you go with Minshew, and then you want to keep him healthy, right? And then you give Reed Sinnett some work, just like Doug Peterson did in the regular season finale when he put.
Don't go with the unstoppable Nate Sudfeld.
Unstoppable.
Don't go there, Ed Kracz.
Well, he's right. It's happened before. Ed's right. That's interesting. I've had my mind. It's going to be a Gardner Minshew day. The NHL has that rule to have that 43-year-old guy who's the emergency goaltender. They have to bring up every once in a while.
Yeah, right.
Maybe Jake Fromm can get that job, and he can go from team to team. Because we might see some Jake Fromm-like ability. I don't know anything about Reed Sinnett, but boy, that would be more likely than not some ugly football. I hope we get to see Gardner Minshew.
Yeah,
I
hope we get to see Reed Sinnett. And listen, I don't want to come back on this show next week for a playoff game, Jody, and you bust my chops about saying that I said Reed Sinnett was going to play, because I'm not saying that. I'm just speculating.
Just checking it.
Okay.
Don't want to go down the Brandon Brooks road again. I understand why you wouldn't want to do that. All right, let's look at the opposition. We certainly always focus most on the Eagles, but the Cowboys are coming to town. And as Johnny correctly pointed out in the first segment, a couple of guys have shown up on their COVID list. A couple of key guys have shown up on their COVID list. Micah Parsons, Tyron Smith, both later than when the Eagles got guy on the COVID list, which means it's almost 100% that they're not going to be able to play this week. Happenstance. Hey, when you get it, you get it. There's nothing you can do to control it. Or were the Cowboys like the Eagles going, yeah, we could just have an explanation as to why we're not playing some of our best guys after the owners come out and said, we need to be playing winning football going into the playoffs. Well, or we can just let them test positive, and then we don't have to explain to anybody why they didn't play. Surprised that a couple of Cowboy stars ended up on the COVID list this week, and I'm suggesting that neither one of them had to test, that they probably chose to test.
Yeah, and again, long-term wise, now they don't have to test again. Once they test positive coming out of this protocol, I'm sorry, negative coming out of the protocols, then they don't have to test for 90 days. So that ensures that they'll be available throughout whatever playoff run the Cowboys, like the Eagles, will make. And if anybody wants to play this week, I'm sure it's Micah Parsons, because he grew up 2 hours west of Philadelphia, in Harrisburg. So you would think he would have loved to have come home and played in, kind of nearby where he grew up, but he's not going to play because you said he got put on the list late in the week. So I would fully expect he's not going to be even in town. He might be in town, but I doubt it. Keanu O'Neal's on that list. He's a guy that I like a lot. Maley Cooker, a safety, I think he's on that list too. I mean, they have some guys on defense that won't play in this game. And how much your starters like DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory and Leighton Vander Esch, how much will they play? Who knows? I mean, Mike McCarthy said earlier in the week that they're coming here to win, as you should. And Nick Sirianni said that on Thursday also, that they're playing to win the game. But you're playing in the win with guys that aren't
playing to win the game with Reeds and Ed, as per Ed Kracz.
Yeah, you're playing.
That's how they're going to win.
See, Ed, you went down the wormhole. Anthony Brown also probably.
I'm wearing my green shirt next week, Jody.
There you go.
Deflect from the
green shirt out again.
Yeah. Anthony Brown, Trevon Diggs is now on the injury report. So you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about the Gardner Minshew pick six. Trevon Diggs probably isn't going to play.
Yeah, Diggs really used that Eagles game as kind of a springboard to one of the best seasons by a cornerback ever. Took that throw from Jalen Hurts 59 yards to the house.
Yeah, he's a playmaker, but
he
he was picking up. I think he was picking up everybody before Hurts, so you can't blame Jalen for that. Yeah,
might have been his first pick six of the season, though.
Might have been.
I don't know.
Might have been.
Yeah,
he's had a phenomenal year. He's got tremendous ball skills, and he can make plays that just turn the tide of the game. So, it is going to be interesting to see how both teams handle it. It does seem like the Cowboys have come to their senses as well. It's just not worth it. There's a little chance to JAKIB proceeding for both teams and improve your lot in life. But let's talk about that lot, because this game is, as we said, shaping up as not much more than Eagles Cowboys in name only. So let's look ahead to the playoffs, Ed. You got four potential options. The Buccaneers are the most likely. Cardinals and Cowboys are the least likely. So it's probably going to be Buccaneers or LA Rams. But of the four teams, who do you think the Eagles would have the best chance at? Who do you think they would have the worst chance of beating?
Well, I think based on the way the Cardinals are playing, and I know there's a limited percent that they play the Cardinals, I would want to play the Cardinals because of the way they're playing. I think they're 2-3 in their last 5 games. They have some injuries there that they're dealing with. Kyler Murray hasn't been the same quarterback as he was earlier in the year, and I just think it would be really cool to see Zach Ertz in a playoff situation lined up on the other side.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be a neat thing to see. A great storyline, certainly to write about. But that would be my number one pick, the Cardinals, but I don't think that's going to happen. And then I think, gosh, I don't like the Rams matchup at all. I think having to go all the way out to the West Coast, advantage LA. They're built for this moment. They loaded up with all these dream team like players that are now in the playoffs, and I think the Rams are probably the best team in the NFC. Not named Green Bay, and I'm not even sure Green Bay's the best team. I think the Rams are in the NFC. So I'm not sure I want to play the Rams. And then you could say, well, okay, how about the Bucs? Then you still have Tom Brady, and he's the reigning Super Bowl champion. And until somebody beats him, he is still that. But I think I'd want to play the Bucs just because. Because I know
all week. But Jody, it's piling up. The information is piling up. Everybody's picking the Bucs, not just you.
You guys are all crazy.
Who do you like, Jody? Who do you want to see them play?
No, it's not who I want to see. It's who I don't want to see. And his name's Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And you don't tug on Superman's cape.
Yeah.
And you and others, at least At least you didn't put them as the number one choice. At least you put the Cardinals in at number one. We've had people come out and say, my number one choice to play would be Tampa Bay,
which
I think is asinine, to be honest with you. He's the guy who I don't want. Here's how I would break it down. Eagles are going to be an underdog no matter who they play next week. Going to Arizona, 45, 45 split. Cardinals will be favored. If they go to L.A., which you mentioned, the Rams are pretty good and they loaded up pushed all the chips in today, whatever. But the Eagles do win in L.A. They've done well going out to L.A. the last couple of years. I know this is a different group, different coach, so how much emphasis do you put on that? Not a lot, but it's worth noting that they do travel out well to L.A. I'd say maybe a 25, 30% chance to beat the Rams. Cowboys, same thing, 25. I rate the Cowboys and the Rams right about the same. Chance to beat Tom Brady, 2%. 98,
wow,
98 to 2. Bucks beat 2%. The Eagles.
I'd like you're going all in like Les Snead. Jody just put all the chips in the middle of the table.
And I'm betting on Tom Brady. Yeah. I think that's a pretty solid bet.
Well,
that's like, what do you do with
it's
aces?
Not about Tom Brady, though.
That takes a lot of thinking to split aces. That would be the way I would look at Tom Brady in the playoffs.
To me, it's not about Tom Brady. It's about the supporting cast right now. I mean, if Tom Brady was with his entire group that started the season, was the reigning Super Bowl champions, yeah, I agree with you. That they're linking oil. They're linking oil right now. And they have some issues, off the field issues as well with Antonio Brown. I'm not saying it's likely by any stretch of the imagination that the Eagles go in and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I would rather face Tampa Bay than the Rams or Dallas. Now, not Arizona.
Give
me Cliff Kingsbury every day of the week and twice on Sunday. That's who I want to. And even though Arizona's got a ton of playmakers, but I just think the head coach limits them a little bit. That's my perspective.
When Cyril Grayson goes 6 catches for
Cyril Grayson
goes 6 catches for $122 and a touchdown against the Eagles. Just remember who lifted him to that level. His name's Tom Brady.
Well, then we'd need Tyree Jackson to go for 5 and 90 if you're picking.
Well, Tom might, Jody has a point in that great quarterbacks elevates, and they do turn. And that's been one of my issues with other quarterbacks at times. And you say, you make excuses and you say, well, he doesn't have playmakers. And before everybody screams, I'm not talking specifically about Jalen Hurts, but there are certain guys that really elevate the Alan Lazards of the world and the Marquez Valdez Scantlings of the world who are no better than Quez Watkins, and, well, they might be better than Jalen Reagor. I digress there. But, there are certain quarterbacks that can elevate receivers, and Tom is certainly one of them. But, boy, I don't want to have to cover Cooper Kupp or Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb. They scare me more, even so.
Yeah, the Rams do have a lot of weapons, but and listen, Tampa, I mean, you're going to play a good team no matter who you play.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get around it. You're going to play a good team.
Tampa does have the tight ends, and now I expect them to be more tight end based, I guess, with Chris Godwin out and Antonio Brown streets. But
and let's look at it. So when is the last time you mentioned we're talking about Kyler Murray, we're talking about Matthew Stafford, we're talking about Dak Prescott, we're talking about Tom Brady. So if we go down, I'm looking at the Eagles schedule. So we'll go backwards. Taylor Heineke, Jake Fromm, Garrett Gilbert, Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones, Trevor Siemian, Teddy Bridgewater, and then you get back to Justin Herbert, who is a legitimate, I think, top 5 quarterback in this league already. Certainly, maybe you could, certainly grasping at that level, at least. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, 2 months. They haven't faced a quarterback like they are going to face in the playoffs. Now they might see Dak for a little bit, but so you throw that into the mix as well. What are we going to learn about this team? Good, bad, win, loss, indifference. Are we going to learn a lot about the defensive side of the football in that playoff game?
Yeah, and I don't think it's anything that we don't already know. The Eagles need help on defense. Let's face it. They're shorthanded there, and I know they've got this streak of 5 straight games holding opponents under 18 points, and that's all well and good, but you just went through that list of quarterbacks there, and not very good. And, when you play a better quarterback, that's going to be tested. That, they're going to put points on the board, you would think, no matter who it is. Brady, Stafford, Dak, Kyler Murray. The defense needs help, and that's not going to arrive until the offseason, but they need help, in my opinion, on every level. The line, the linebacker play, and the back end with the safeties and a cornerback. And, that's not going to magically get better when you face one of these better quarterbacks. So I firmly expect to not really learn something new. We're just going to kind of see what we saw early in the season, that this defense is going to be under stress, and it's going to be up to, some of your veteran players to find a way to make a stop when you can, a Fletcher Cox or even a Josh Sweat, who has stepped up and made some big plays this season when needed. But, you need your Darius Slays and your Rodney McLeods to make plays. And if they can do that, they'll find a way to win, I think, in the playoffs. But the question is, can they do it with what's around them? And I'm not sure they can. I like the fact that they can run the ball to keep quarterbacks off the field and kind of control the clock a little bit. That might play into their favor. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a stress for the defense. And it's what we saw back in September and October when you're playing the Mahomes and the Derek Carrs and the Herberts and all these other good quarterbacks that they played. Brady, rematch with Brady. It's going to be hard for the defense, in my opinion. But there are ways you can get around it by running the ball and controlling the clock. So that's all going to have to work hand in hand, because this defense needs help. It still does. I mean, in my opinion, even though it's played well, they still need help on that side of the ball.
And one of the things that the Eagle fans like to do, and I know this from doing my WIP shows and getting feedback from the Eagle fans and listening to those shows and is they like to second guess Jonathan Gannon. That's a standard operating procedure this year in Eagles football. Here in week number 18, is Gannon going to do anything, or is this just going to be, we got our philosophy, it's going to be backup players, plug them in, believe that what you've been working on all year will work here? We're not going to learn anything new from Jonathan Gannon here on the last game of the season, are we?
No, I don't think so. We saw him do a little bit more blitzing down in Washington. We saw him, change a little bit some of his philosophy as the season's going on. And he says he doesn't really have a scheme. Everything's kind of week-to-week game planning. So I don't think we're going to see anything different. I think he's just going to probably play it as straight up as he can and just be ready to get into the playoffs, and then maybe throw a few monkey wrenches in there. But as far as Saturday night goes, no, I think it's just going to be a straight up defense, maybe vanilla, kind of a preseason type look in terms of how he calls things, and just see if his guys can win one-on-one matchups.
All right, last one from me, Ed, and everybody read Ed Kracz and myself, if you'd like to, at si.com/NFL/Eagles, or the easier route, eaglemaven.com. But we haven't talked about the quarterback. And, there's been a lot of talk about Jalen Hurts, and it's been a week-to-week thing. Is he the guy? Isn't he the guy? I think it's always been about he's the guy until you can find somebody better. And right now, there doesn't seem to be a path to find anyone better. And he has sort of solidified his spot as the starting quarterback on this team. His teammates love him. He's a natural leader. People are drawn to him. Are you surprised by how well Jalen Hurts has played this season?
Not really. I mean, I just think we all looked at him coming into this season thinking that he needed to improve. And I think we've seen improvement. every day, week to week. I think he has gotten better. If you look at, to me, he's not really locking in on the same receiver, kind of like he was earlier in the year. He comes, I'd like to see him do a better job of that, but he does come off receivers a little better. I like how the fact now as he stays in the pocket a little bit longer, he's not as quick to get out of there like he was earlier in the season. And then when he does get out of the pocket, in the beginning of the year when he was doing that, he wasn't really making any plays. He was looking to run, or there was nobody open and he would just kind of force something or throw it away. Now you see him making scramble plays, throwing the ball on 3rd and 14 when he's rolling right to Greg Ward down inside the 5. We saw it a few times with the other receivers. He's making plays when he's outside the pocket now. So yeah, I think he's gotten better, and I think he will be the quarterback in 2022. In fact, I'm pretty sure, I'm confident enough to say, yeah, he will be the quarterback in 22, because where is better going to come from? They're not going to trade for Russell Wilson, I'm sure, because Wilson won't want to come here. Deshaun Watson doesn't want to play here. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to come here. And then if you look at the draft, is there a quarterback coming into the league that can do better than Jalen Hurts? I don't think so. And I think what should give Eagles fans hope is that Jalen Hurts will return to the same offense for the second straight year for the first time in his last 6 seasons. When he went to Alabama, he had 3 different offensive coordinators. He went to Oklahoma, played for Lincoln Riley. He came into the NFL and played for Doug Peterson. And now here he is in his first year with Nick Sirianni. So I think if you allow him another season to grow within the same offense, something he hasn't had a chance to do in 6 seasons, I think that should be encouraging, that, yeah, he can get better. I don't think he's at his ceiling yet. I'd like to see him obviously become a better passer, make more plays from inside the pocket, but his ability to move and run and keep defenses honest with playing the run has given him time to develop as a passer. And, he'll be the quarterback in 22, in my opinion.
2-part question. Part 1, either of the two of you can answer since you're both Eagle beat reporters. After the game is played on Saturday, when do you next have your media availability with Nick Sirianni? Is it Sunday because it's the day after? Does it go to Monday because that's the usual day? Or do you guys have any clue? Because I know the Eagles don't always give you advance notice of when you might have the chance to do your jobs.
Yeah, my guess is it will be, and the answer is the latter of what you said, Jody. My guess is it will be Monday.
It will be Monday?
That's just a guess.
All right, Then here's the question for Ed. On Monday, let's say the Eagles get beat 31-10 this week. They just get their tails kicked. It's not a competitive game. Can you just on Monday move right past it? Is your question going to be about who we by that time know who they're going to match up in the first round of the playoffs? That would be 2 tail kickings by the Dallas Cowboys in a year. That doesn't go over well with the Eagle faithful, and the coach isn't going to be able to just push it off as, hey, we start a bunch of guys, we protect them. No, coach, you told us leading up to the game it's all about winning, that the whole team is prepared to win, that it's what we've done for 17 weeks to build this foundation. You can't then in hindsight say, well, yeah, we protected a lot of guys and didn't play any of our players. What happens if they get their ass kicked by the Cowboys?
I think you turn the page, and I think that's what would happen by letting him wait till Monday. No matter how Saturday turns out, I think he's going to talk Monday, because then we'll know who they're playing. And I think, yeah, you want to play to win, and yeah, okay, you got swept by Dallas and you got hammered both times. But unless you're playing Dallas in the wild card round, it doesn't really matter, and it shouldn't matter. You just turn the page and you go into the playoffs, and then you go from there. And, maybe you use that as a, kind of a motivational point. If you're Nick Sirianni, hey, we got our butts kicked. We got to come out and play better. Like Washington did when they went down to Dallas and lost by 42. They came out and laid it out there against the Eagles the following week and almost beat the Eagles. So I think that's how you look at it, is, let's just turn the page, man. It's a new season. Everybody's 0-0, right? 0-0. And you go into the playoffs and you line up. And to be honest, I think the Eagles have already started planning for a playoff game this week.
Keep your feet. What does JG say?
Yeah, JG. I asked him about that, and he's like, "Oh, you got to be where your feet are, Ed." So that's all lip service, in my opinion. If you're not looking ahead to Tampa or LA, because they're the two teams you're probably going to play, one of those two teams, then you're not doing your you're not doing your job the right way. You have to be looking ahead to what's beyond.
They're looking ahead.
Sure.
They have the quality control guys breaking down film of all 4 of those potential teams. But but they'll say, be where your feet are. Be where your feet are, which will be in the snow. Probably as soon as you get off with us at Kracz.
You're absolutely right about that, John.
And remember this name for about 10 days from now. You've probably heard of it before. Le'Veon Bell. Another player that Tom Brady will resurrect from the dead to make a big play against the Eagles in the first round of the playoffs. But Ed Kracz, like John McMullen, like Paul Domwich, like every other knucklehead analyst we had on the show over the last week, and Jay said, "Yeah, bring on Tampa Bay. Let's get a shot at Brady."
No, I said
Antonio Brown threw his gloves into the stand.
Now Ed
How can they bounce back from that?
Now Ed, I said bring on Cliff Kingsbury. I said if it's a choice between what Dallas can bring or the Rams, then I say bring on the injured team, not bring on Tom Brady. Bring on the affected team.
Can't bring on the injured team without bringing Tom Brady with him. It kind of goes with the deal.
Well,
I say Arizona, but if I had to pick between the Rams and the Bucks, if it was just those 2 teams, give me Tom Brady. Let's tug on Superman's cage, spit into the wind.
Spit in the wind, yeah.
Yeah, all that Jim Croce stuff from 1972. I don't know how many fans out there remember.
Give Father Time a call.
We're gonna rename the show to Mac and the Masochists for all the rest of you guys who want a piece of Tom Brady. Eddie K, thank you very much. Are you going out to shovel? Or are you going to break down film on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so that you can give Nick Sirianni some insights how you beat the GOAT? What are you going to do with the next 2 hours of your life?
Well, I'm going to shovel and think about how to beat Tom Brady, and then I'll put those thoughts into words and, see if he'll listen. But, yeah, shoveling snow. As soon as I get off, it's the long underwear goes on, the boots, everything, and you won't even recognize me. I'll have a hat on, scarf, because it's cold it's windy and it's snowy out there.
Smart man, Ed Kracz. Appreciate you hopping on board. Thanks, bud.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
Game Day Kracz here with us on Birds 365. All right, John McMullen, Jody McDonald. Come back. We'll break down the Cowboy game coming up on Saturday. Why? We're not sure. But we got to do it. They're going to play it. We got to talk about it.
Week 18.
And then we will get to the game, which is more important, the playoff game, which is next week. And along those lines, other key matchups in the NFL this weekend, some of which may affect who the Eagles are going to play in the playoffs. We're going to get Connor Orr up, national columnist for Sports Illustrated. Did write an article about the Eagles' offense this week for SI, but I am interested in talking to Connor about all the key games across the league this week. Keep it right here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Good day, everyone. It's Joe Kracz from the JAKIB Media Network here at Neck of the Woods. So excited to introduce Kracz Coat Check, a cold IPA. It's just an incredible thing. I'm in my 18th year of Kracz Coats, and with Brian's help and Frank coming together here at Neck of the Woods, Kracz Coat Check, a cold IPA, was born on this day. We'll celebrate it on January 11th, and everyone is invited to enjoy or to meet and experience the entire JAKIB Media team, and also experience Kracz Coat Check, a cold IPA. Gentlemen, a toast, I think, to you for producing Kracz Coat Check here at Neck of the Woods. Cheers. Cheers.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
John McMullen and Jody McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys here on Bird 365. We're less than just over 2 days from, just over 24 hours from when the Eagles and Cowboys will kick it off on a Saturday NFL game, a Saturday night NFL game. And Johnny Mac just loves the night games, so this is right up his alley.
On a Saturday night too, Jody. Man, I don't even know. I'm like, it's Friday and I got to go to a football game tomorrow. I thought about that this morning. I'm like, well, I'm not, I got to get ready for this thing.
See, and I would think your bigger issue would be, what the hell do you do with yourself on a Sunday? Sunday it's in your DNA to be prepping for a
Sunday
game.
You still got the games though. You still got the rest of the playoff picture.
So will you just be on the couch letting your wife lavish you with snackies from 12 o'clock?
That's not going to happen. No, I'll be trying to fend off the wife from telling me to do stuff, trying to explain to her that, oh, no, the Eagles aren't playing, but there's still stuff I have to pay attention to, which I've told you this before. After 2 decades, she still doesn't believe me. She's never going to believe me. But I'm telling the truth. I'm not lying.
Yeah, and even as an Eagle beat guy, you got to know what the hell else is going on in the National Football League. If you need me to talk to your wife, I'll talk to her for you. I don't think it'll do any good, but I'm volunteering my services. I'll say
she'll just assume.
By the way, I apologize for this. I don't know your wife's name. Your wife's name is
Debbie.
Debbie. Listen, John has got a blind spot. He doesn't acknowledge that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. He needs to learn more. Even though Tom Brady's been playing 20 some odd years in the National Football League, John hasn't figured out that you want to avoid playing him. Maybe, just maybe, if he watches him this week, it will finally sink in. So do me a favor. Be compassionate. Be understanding. Let him watch the Bucs kick the snot out of the Panthers this week. And maybe John won't look foolish on.
Yeah. Well, you're assuming there's a baseline of football knowledge. She knows who Tom Brady is.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's enough. That's all she needs.
Yeah. That probably hardcore football talk's not going to win the day in that argument.
All right, let's get back to hardcore football talk. Eagles running game, John, coming up this week. We know that Kenneth Gainwell should be good to go. I'd actually like to see Kenneth Gainwell get the ball a little bit more in a running position rather than just a third down, make plays out of the backfield kind of guy for educational purposes for next year. What kind of a load can he carry in an Eagle running game going forward if you want to increase the number of carries he gets, because he doesn't get many. And I don't believe that was, you remember, we all should turn the clock back to week 1, where it was their number 1 back and who is now their number 4 back, or number 1 and number 2. Miles Sanders was number 1. Ken Gainwell was number 2 to start the year.
Oh, yeah.
He was the change of pace guy. Jordan Howard was on the practice squad, a complete afterthought. And Boston Scott was like the guy without a position. He was the third forgotten man sitting on the bench. So Ken Gainwell's going to get a chance to show up and show off a little bit this week, which I'm kind of excited to see. But other than that, what the hell's going to happen? We know Miles Sanders isn't playing with a broken hand, but we don't know if Boston Scott availability is going to be. We don't know what Jordan Howard availability is going to be. We're assuming they're calling at least one guy up from the practice squad. How do you think the running game is going to look by the time game time rolls around at 8 o'clock on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it's going to be a lot of Kenneth Gainwell, and I think it's going to be Jason Huntley and Kerryon Johnson. I don't, Boston Scott's dealing with a little bit of a knee issue. Jordan Howard's dealing with the shoulder stinger as well as the COVID issues. It's one of those things that, from my perspective, if there's any issue, if there's any physical issue, err on the side of caution and say, all right, we're going to shut this guy down, especially guys that are going to be a big part of your plan offensively, whomever you're going to play. Now, the Eagles probably have a better indication of whether or not it's realistic for Miles Sanders to be back for the playoffs. I mean, to me, it seems like a long shot, especially after surgery, but we don't know the indication of pins or anything of that nature. I haven't seen that anywhere. So, people have done it before. It's not like it's not possible, but it seems like a long shot to me. If it is a long shot, if I'm right, and he's not going to play, well, then both of those guys, Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, are going to be a very big part of your game plan for the playoffs. If Miles is able to play, Boston Scott probably kind of falls off a little bit. It's not going to be a big part of the offense. So, they have a better feel if Miles Sanders is going to be back. And if he's not going to be back, then you better take care of Jordan Howard and Boston Scott. And that's why I think you have to err on the side of caution.
I agree with your overall take, except for one thing. Boston Scott has a nose for the end zone. I got a call Monday, Tuesday night, WP, I don't remember what it was, that the Eagles really needed a big 250-pound guy down by the end zone. They don't have it on this team. It's one of the missing things that the Eagles are missing. They got to give the ball to poor old little Boston Scott. I'm good with giving the ball to Boston Scott. The guy is tremendous inside the 5. Our buddy Ruben Frank had a great stat. Now, don't quote me on this because I don't have it in front of me, but I'm trying to remember it as best I can. In the last 3 years, Boston Scott has gotten a handoff inside the 5-yard line 12 times. He's gotten into the end zone 7 out of 12. He's got the ability to find the little crevice, to make the play. This last game, to go airborne, to score the touchdown. I'm perfectly fine with Boston Scott scoring touchdowns. I know Miles Sanders is still waiting for his first touchdown, which I'm sure isn't making Miles very happy. But if the team is winning and they're going to the playoffs, which means they're winning enough, Miles Sanders should be able to get over it. And, yeah, oh, by the way, they get down by the 5. Even if Miles got him all the way down to the 5, I'm perfectly happy giving the ball to Boston Scott and saying, do what you do, buddy. Find a way into the end zone.
Well, a couple things there. Is Jordan Howard healthy? If Jordan Howard's healthy, I don't know what he's talking about, 250 pounds. There might be one. I mean, Corey Dillon. I mean, Jordan Howard is that back you're talking about. He's the between the tackles, always going forward, always pushing the pile. I mean, he is that back that your caller was talking about. And he's more equipped long-term to be that sort of short yardage back. But if you just look about the Eagles in general, and Boston, I said this about Darren Sproles for years as well. When people would say Darren Sproles is small, I would say he's not small, he's short. Same thing with Boston Scott. He's not small, he's short. They're both very powerful. It's almost eerily similar. They're both pound for pound, two of the strongest people on the Eagles at the times when they were playing in the weight room. They're both very big into powerlifting and things of that nature. So their lower bodies are massive. So that helps them down at the goal line. It always helped Darren. It helps Boston as well. The other thing that helps, and Nick has talked about, you see 5'6" Boston Scott. Well, you don't see 5'6" Boston Scott because he's behind a wall of 6'8" Jordan Mailata, 6'6" Lane Johnson, 6'5" Landon Dickerson, on and on and on. I mean, you can't even see him to figure out what hole he's picking. So that helps. That's helpful. But to my larger point before, Jody, I'm just going by how this team is, when Miles got hurt the first time, Boston played. And then when he came back, he didn't play. And then when Jordan hurt, he played. And, when Miles and Jordan are there, he hasn't played since, the first Miles Sanders injury. And when they needed him to play, he has performed at a very high level. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for it. But, this team, this coaching staff clearly sees him at this stage as the third running back behind Miles Sanders or Jordan Howard. So if those guys are ready to go, they're going to be the guys, is all I'm trying to say. But they have a better indication of whether it's realistic for Miles Sanders to be back for the playoffs. I find it hard to believe he's going to be back for the first game in the playoffs.
Right.
But they didn't put him on IR.
That's exactly the point I was going to make, that and Sirianni did specifically bring that up on I think it was Monday when you guys got a chance to talk to him, that we didn't put Miles on IR for a reason, because if you put him on IR, then that would have, when he got hurt, that would have encompassed the first game of the playoffs, and they're holding out hope that he's ready for the first game play. Not a lock, but if it was something that was like going to be a 6-week injury, then you throw up your hands and go, all right, we got no shot. We might as well put him on IR to give us flexibility with the roster. But it was in that gray area where it depends on when he's going to come back. So I'm not counting it out yet. I'm with you that I think it's doubtful, but I'm going to cling to the hope that Miles does recover enough that he is at least activated for next week's game. Let me run this one by you before we get Connor Orr up to talk not only Eagles, but all the other machinations that can come down here in Week 18 in the NFL. Let's say the coach of the Eagles was listening to Birds 365 this morning, and somewhat surprisingly and maybe disappointingly, it dawns on him that John McMullen is exactly right, that we can't afford to lose Devonta Smith. If he goes down, yeah, we're kind of screwed. And I hadn't been thinking along those lines just yet, but damn, I got to come up with a game plan here. Sans Devontae, because if he gets hurt, we're done. Yeah, I got to rethink this thing. So he does. How's that going to work with that wide receiver core? I believe John McMullen, again, I'm quoting you a lot here, buddy, said earlier this week, I wouldn't care if you blew up the whole room as long as you got Devonta Smith out first and rebuilt it from top to bottom. Oh, the top to bottom is going to be the receivers for the Eagles on Sunday if Devonta Smith is rightly protected. Anybody got a chance to step up, play well? Jalen Reagor actually getting out of the doghouse. Greg Ward getting 7 catches, making my point. Nick Sirianni's got to open his eyes and realize I got one of my best receivers not getting enough snaps during Sunday. How is it going to play this week, and what kind of effect will it have on the playoff wide receiver rotation?
Well, I don't think it will have much effect at all on the playoff wide receiver rotation. I one of the problems is, if it's going to go the way we expected, Jody, and not, much of the offensive line isn't going to play. And we talked about that earlier in the show. And if Jack Anderson is out there and Brett Toth and so forth and so on, your offense is not going to look good. And it's not even necessarily the fault of the quarterback. I say it all the time. The running backs, the receivers. If you can't block people, you can't play offense. And if you're not blocking people, now, who knows who Dallas is going to have, trying to block. So, maybe the Eagles' reserves are better than Dallas's reserves, and they can get some things done. But either way, I don't think it's that important unless, it's starters against starters, and you're trying to affect people that way. But, and we're going to have Connor on in a few minutes. He points out that this team has used 13 personnel, 3 tight ends, more frequently than just about anybody in the NFL. So maybe they go that route. Now they have tight end issues, or you're not going to play Dallas Goedert. Jack Stoll's not ready to go just yet. So starts Tyree Jackson, Richard Rodgers. So there's a lot of moving parts. And I guess at the end of the day, because of all those moving parts, none of it is going to be meaningful. So I don't think anybody's going to have an opportunity to pop their head up and say, oh, Jalen Reagor turned the corner, or Quez Watkins made a big play, or Greg Ward was able to get some things done, and that's going to be meaningful moving forward.
Just a guess on my part. If we're looking at the 12 guys who are on the COVID list as of right now, as you correctly pointed out on Monday, and I second your motion, there was some planning behind all those players showing up on a COVID list on a Monday. 5 days later, could be eligible to play on a Saturday game. I think Jack Stoll, and I got no idea. I got no moles in the Eagles medical team that are going to give me inside info. I'm just guessing from afar, I should say. I'm going to guess Jack Stoll's going to be able to play on Saturday. That if he's one of those guys,
I think you're that's a good guess, Joe.
Yeah, if he's one of those guys, well, asymptomatic, but the test just happened to pop positive. Oops, he's got to go on the pro.
Remember, you don't even have to test out now. You just got to show no symptoms. So yeah, he's going to be back.
I think there's a very good chance he's playing. And yes, the Eagles will be playing some 13 ball with guys just trying to get to move the ball via the ground. I expect Jack Stoll's number of snaps to go up significantly this week because, yeah, you and I kind of agree. Dallas Goedert's another guy they couldn't afford to lose. Not as big a drop-off between he and the other tight ends as Devontae Smith and the elevation of either J.J. Arcega-Whiteside or Greg Ward into that position. But I think that Dallas will not be playing much. He might be one of the guys. He's one of the guys because he's on the COVID list too. He's one of those who might not get off the COVID list.
Yeah,
because
he might still be showing symptoms on Saturday.
Yes, which the job of John McMullen
wink,
is
wink.
to find out where Dallas Goedert is during the game on Saturday and see if he's actually showing any of those symptoms because we don't know. We believe that the Eagles did a good job of quote unquote gaming the system to get ready for.
Well, if he's still on the COVID list, he won't be at Lincoln Financial Field. So you know that he and Avante are both on the COVID list. So they'll be.
If you're in the protocols, are you even allowed on the?
No. You're in quarantine until now. You come back.
Question, and I know we got to take a break
here. I should say before. You'd come in and test and then leave. So you would come in the morning, test. Now you don't even have to test out. So it's just about, are you showing symptoms? And, that's up to the doctor. And that's where you have the wiggle room.
Right. So you come in and go, I'm fine. What's the doctor going to do? A 90-minute examination to prove you wrong that you're not fine?
And people, the NFL gets buried because I brought that up to some people in the NFL, because it's pretty easy to say that players are going to say they're not sick, even if they are sick, especially to play in the playoffs. And, if a doctor notices you got a pretty significant congestion issue or, runny nose or, they can't necessarily tell a sore throat, but maybe they can if it's inflamed. You can't necessarily hide all symptoms. And that's their argument. But if they're very minor, just like, I always go back to Malcolm Jenkins when he admitted he sort of feigned the concussion issue once and he regretted it. Players did that for years. Players will try to, If they have minor symptoms, they'll try to play.
That's what we're probably looking at for the playoffs, not this week. The Eagles will help dictate exactly who's going to be able to play or not. All right, coming up next, Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated wrote an intriguing article about the Birds this week. He does a great job covering the league week in and week out. I do have some questions for him for the other games to be played other than Eagles Cowboys this weekend leading into the playoffs. Connor Orr is up next here on Birds 365.
This is Joe Krause of Krause's Coats, inviting you to donate a slightly worn coat or jacket and help veterans stay warm this winter. Go to Krause's Coats on Facebook to help those who've served. Have a happy holiday.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The city of Philadelphia sparkles during the Christmas holiday season with an array of colorful light displays and illuminated Christmas trees, donated or installed for free by the talented electricians of IBEW Local 98. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities at IBEW Local 98, visit us at www.ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
As a hard-working American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. A personal injury from someone else's negligence. Turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz & Bianculli Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz & Bianculli Law Firm. Find out why they say, we got this.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Week 18 in the NFL. Something we've never been able to say before because, don't forget, this is the biggest NFL season ever. Yeah, that just bugged the snot out of me when ESPN, the NFL Network, was saying that all September long leading up to the season. Yeah, we had it again. We got it. We noted that. Thank you very much for reminding us. Well, we have reached the end of the regular season, or almost. We got one more week to go, and then we got the postseason. Here to give us not only a look at the Eagles going into the postseason, but everybody, because he covers the entire league, does a damn good job doing it for Sports Illustrated, Mr. Connor Orr. Connor, thanks for coming on board. How was your New Year?
It's everything's going great. We're here in Jersey, total COVID lockdown. So but life is good. I have friends in my living room. So
exactly. I'm in South Jersey, so same thing, Connor. But good to see you. First off, Happy New Year's, Jody said. You're a popular guy in Philadelphia this morning. Wrote a story at Monday Morning Quarterback, Sports Illustrated. The most fascinating offense in the NFL. Why are the Eagles that? What has Nick Sirianni done? And by the way, why did it take so long? Why did the ship take so long?
So I think it's a couple of things, and I would include Shane Steichen in that equation too, because I think a lot of the stuff I noticed before I started writing the piece was looking back at what he had done with Justin Herbert, and I said, hey, is there any similarities between what's going on now and what the Chargers are doing really well last year? And you started noticing some of the deep crossing routes that were the same. You started to notice, wow, both of these quarterbacks, getting better with completion percentage. They're taking some of the easier throws. They're getting easier throws open. And so that led to just an exploration of the offense as a whole. And I have to say, it's just interesting, right? I mean, the Eagles can look like the Ravens. They can do a lot of the jet sweep, triple option backfield stuff, or they can line up in 13 personnel, kind of like the Colts do, and just pound you into submission. And that's really, really hard for other teams to defend. And you don't need Josh Allen at quarterback if you're running the ball that well and your quarterback's just smart enough to find the open guy.
And oh, by the way, John and I were talking about before you came on, we expect them to be in 13 personnel and do what they do best, which is, just mano a mano, our bigs against your bigs. Our bigs are better. We're going to take it to you. That's a great philosophy, and it's worked really well for the Eagles this year with the #1 rushing game in the NFL. Who's going to do it this week, though? They still have a game yet to play, and as of right now, we got no idea other than Kenneth Gainwell if they've got any running backs, and we don't even know who the big beef is going to be up front because of COVID protocols and how much do you rest. It's a good thing you wrote the article this week because because this week's Eagles offense might not look like the entire year's Eagles offense.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I mean, this has just been such a, I think Tom Brady said it last year that he had predicted COVID would be harder this year to handle than it was last year. And I think in many ways that's true. I mean, we've seen teams kind of scramble at the last minute to put some stuff together, but it's hard. And especially if you have an identity built around one side of the ball. We saw the Cleveland Browns just decimated this year in the running game. There's been 3 or 4 games. I mean, they could easily be in playoff contention right now if we were in a normal non-pandemic year, even with Baker Mayfield's shoulder injury. And so, luckily Philadelphia's already clinched. They're in. So, they don't have that much to worry about this weekend.
Now, Connor, one of the interesting things I think you brought up, because I've used this term unique to describe Jalen Hurts as a player, as a quarterback, you use it to describe the offense, which is completely unique to the quarterback and the offensive line. I remember talking to college coaches a few back in the day when they had to play somebody like Navy or Georgia Tech when they were running. And they said one of the most difficult things to do was to prepare, because you can't justify preparing for them more than the week that you're playing them. And it's so rare to see. And you kind of bring up obviously much different philosophy, but nobody else runs what the Eagles run. So it's difficult to prepare for in such a short period of time. Is that sort of tapped into some of the success?
100%. And I think Baltimore sort of cornered the market on that a couple of years ago. I mean, they brought in some of the Georgia Tech guys to teach them how to block stuff up front, because that was the idea, right? To build an offense around Lamar Jackson that nobody else could defend. And I think what the Eagles have done is sort of take that and sort of make it a broader concept, right? So you can be Baltimore, you can be Lamar Jackson if that's what you want to do. I mean, I noticed hints of stuff, from like the Wake Forest playbook. They were doing this really delayed RPO handoff stuff where they were manipulating the defensive end, and that looks straight out of college. And like you said, these guys don't practice this stuff every week. They're not ready to do this stuff. And so, Cam Jordan in that Saints game was not used to being strung out all the way to halfway to the sideline and then having Jalen Hurts just shoot inside of him and run the ball for 30 yards. And so I think that's what's coming. We saw New England really do that with Mac Jones this year. Baltimore, obviously, with Lamar Jackson. We're seeing the death of like a coach saying, this is my offense, right? Because you can't do that anymore. All the talent is so different across the board that you have to be smart enough to build something around the person and the individual. And that's why I think what they've done is so impressive.
I kind of know this is not necessarily your bailiwick because you cover the entire league. You come in, do an article on the Eagles, get some great information, paint a real nice picture. Eagle fans say thank you very much. But you cover the entire league. Kind of a narrow focus question. Eagles are going to the playoffs as of next week. Nick Sirianni has done an outstanding job with them this year. He's a first-year coach. Jalen Hurts is unquestionably the leader of the offense of this football team. He's never played in the playoffs before. They've got guys on this team who are Super Bowl champions, like a Jason Kelsey, like a Lane Johnson, like a Fletcher Cox. Who's going to be the one to rally the troops and get the right message across for how the Eagles get ready for that first playoff game?
Well, I mean, I think you said it. If you're Nick Sirianni, you defer to the guys who have been there before. And I remember back when Carson Wentz got hurt and covering that team on the way to the Super Bowl, it seemed like it was Kelsey and it was Lane Johnson and it was a lot of those guys that stepped up in that time, in that period, and really filled the leadership void. They were doing the St. Nick stuff with Nick Foles and really like galvanizing the locker room around Nick Foles, making sure that the media got on board with that and kind of making sure the messaging was uniform there. I think those guys are really smart. I mean, they've been around locker rooms like this before. They know how to handle that kind of stuff. They know how to handle us, and, you know, they don't have us bothering them in the locker room this year too. So I think that's an added bonus for them and maybe makes life a little bit easier, but I think they'll be okay. And, you know, Sirianni, you know, I think is smart enough, you know, from moment one, to have kind of placed a little bit of deference on those guys and allowed them some leeway to lead that locker room.
Connor, let's expand things to the entire NFC and put Green Bay off to the side for a second, because I think everybody sees that's the significant favorite. But, you know, there's a chance the Eagles could play 4 different teams. Obviously, Tampa the most likely, then the Rams, less likely Arizona, Dallas. They're all good football teams. What is the most dangerous of those 4 to play right now? What do you think would be the easiest path for Philadelphia? Obviously, they're going to be a underdog no matter what. But who would you say the toughest matchup is, the easiest matchup?
It's a good question. I would say, oddly, like if I'm Nick Sirianni, like maybe you want the Rams, and here's why. I think because we've seen the Rams just get decimated against power running teams this year. Like I think it was San Francisco really kind of exposed them in one of the primetime games. It was maybe a Sunday or a Thursday a couple of weeks ago, where they just came out in outside zone and they ran the ball down their throat. I think it was like a 13-14 play drive. Other teams are doing that now. You know, every time that someone plays the Rams now, they say, okay, we'll invite Aaron Donald upfield. I'm not afraid of Von Miller stopping the run. He's a pass rusher, and we're just going to run you guys over. And I think Philadelphia could probably do that. They could play clock control football against the Rams. And you hope that your defense is good enough to hang on, and, you know, you double Cooper Kupp and you see what happens. You know, I would much rather that than Tom Brady, to be honest. And Dallas has Micah Parsons, and I think that that's kind of the answer, right? Generally, to someone like Jalen Hurts, is somebody who can spy really well, who can get in the backfield, and who can disguise coverages.
Yeah, I didn't even think about Micah Parsons as a spy. That's a good point. Maybe I should give the Cowboys a little bit more credit, because all my compatriots here on Birds 365 have not given Brady enough credit or enough respect in my eyes. But yeah, maybe I've been under respecting the Cowboys. All right, another NFL question across the board, 2-parter. Number one, do you have an MVP vote?
I don't have an MVP vote, and if I did, I wouldn't get in trouble talking about it.
There you go. Hey, be nice. Hub is a good friend of mine.
No,
so
I know.
We'll put that aside. But if you had a vote, since you don't have one, you can talk about it at length, as a matter of fact. How would you rank the first couple MVP candidates in the very specific order?
Oh, I would say, I mean, I wrote this a couple of weeks ago. I would say that if I had a vote, it would have gone into Jonathan Taylor, and I still might give it to Jonathan Taylor. I mean, to run the ball that well when teams know that you're running the ball. And, you know, the pushback I got from that was, oh, they had Quentin Nelson. But some of his best games, Quentin Nelson wasn't in the lineup. I mean, he wasn't playing during some of those games. And, you know, they destroyed the Bills. They destroyed, you know, some really good run defense teams this year. And, you know, he was doing it both ways. He situationally catching the ball out of the backfield. You know, I thought he had a really good season. And Joe Burrow, I think, is just, you know, maybe comeback player of the year. You know, you could rival Dak Prescott there, given what happened to his knee last year. But MVP, I mean, that is not like what the Eagles have. That is not a beautifully designed offense for Joe Burrow. That's a Joe Burrow take the snap and try to figure something out and make something happen. And he's making something happen on every down. And he's basically produced a rookie of the year candidate, during a preseason where he was so tender with that knee, he didn't want to get hit, with the non-contact jersey on. And so I think that's wildly impressive to me. And I would, Brady's obviously up there. I mean, my guess is that, he would probably win the award anyway, but I think those two guys really deserve some serious consideration. Cooper Kupp as well. I mean, just most valuable player. If you take him out of that lineup, the Rams right now are, 8-8.
Is there something, I saw this in really the NBA, Jordan the Jordan era, and even a little bit LeBron, technically you could give those guys the MVP every year, but people get bored of it. And, I maintain that, Aaron could be MVP pretty much any season. Aaron Donald could be Defensive Player of the Year any season. Bill Belichick could be Coach of the Year any season. And, Bill hardly wins it because everybody expects it from him. Is there something to that? Just, the voters want to go different directions at certain times?
I think there's a human element to it for sure, where we get used to certain, levels of play. And then, I think too, it's sort of a look over here, look over there mentality. Like if somebody we haven't seen before is playing really well, doing something different, I think naturally just our human instinct is to look over there and then get really impressed by that and forget all the other things. I mean, to your point, I think Bill Belichick's been Coach of the Year 3 times, I want to say, since 2000. I mean, I think that number should be closer to 10, and I think, I mean, and look at how many different ways that he's rebuilt the Patriots, even just when Tom Brady was there. And I think he's got to be a front runner this year. I think Matt LaFleur was the betting favorite the last time I saw it.
Yeah.
But, I would go Bill Belichick this year. I think what he's done is absolutely phenomenal. But I think you're right. There's something to that. There's just a recency bias, something to that effect. But I'm always one for, if the guy's the best, he's the best. If you're dominant, you shouldn't be punished for that.
Connor, you gave us a good read on the teams that you like in the NFC with the matchups against the Eagles. How about over in the AFC? Tennessee just jumped up to the #1 seed this past week. And damn, I've had the hardest time handicapping them all year. I put them on a pedestal when they were winning games, going out to L.A., beating the Rams without their star running back. I said, damn, they're that good. And then they had some really ugly games during the year, including getting handled by Houston. And all right, well, now they're finally coming back down there. They're not that good. Tannehill looks like he's the Tannehill of Miami. And damn, they play great football here at the end to grab the #1 spot. Just by record, they should be the #1 seed. But by the way you see them, would you say they're the team to beat in the AFC?
Probably not. I mean, remember too, they lost to the Jets with Derrick Henry, I think, and they've had some bad games this year. But you just can't count out Kansas City. I mean, I know that they lost to Cincinnati and the Bengals outshot them last week, but it's still Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And, it's such a boring answer to that question, but, I view them as the best team. And, I would not count out a competitive Bill Belichick at this point. I mean, they might finish the season as an 11-win team. And, that's probably the last guy I want, staring me down on the other sideline if I'm starting the AFC playoffs. Now, is he good enough to make it to the conference title game this year? Probably not. But is that team as a whole probably as good as some of the Patriots teams he's had that have made the Super Bowl? Yeah, I think so. Minus Tom Brady, obviously. But so I think it'll be interesting. I think it's sort of wide open there. I think Kansas City's more vulnerable than they've been in the past, but I'd probably have to bet on them. Now, Tennessee's interesting. You get Derrick Henry back. I don't know what that Jones fracture is going to look like after that short of a time off, but it's certainly intimidating for, an opponent to have to prepare for that full force again.
Connor, if you did, we mentioned Green Bay, you mentioned Kansas City. I think in a lot of ways people default to those two teams, and rightfully so, as you mentioned. If there was going to be a surprise, you mentioned Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. You talked about the Eagles offense. So a lesser seeded team who makes the magical run, what team kind of scares you the most or says, oh, they might be able to get something done?
San Francisco. I had them winning 11 games in my preseason predictions. And, I think, you lose George Kittle. And, I think if they didn't lose George Kittle during the season, I think they probably would have hit that. That offense is so hard to defend when it's rolling, and I just think that, I remember watching them just destroy the Packers in the conference title game a few years ago, and they're as good, if not better, than an offensive line than they were back then, and George Kittle's healthy. You get Jimmy Garoppolo back. I mean, this team made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I think that they could come in and, cold weather games, depending on who they get, just absolutely thrash people. And I think that that's kind of been their MO. And they're aggressive on defense, which is situational in the playoffs. But sometimes you hit on one of those, D'Amico Ryan's blitzes that he calls, and all of a sudden, it's like you hit on one of those early in a game, you cause a turnover, and then you can run the ball like they do 25, 30 times a game. That's over. You're not going to be able to come back.
I want to know how Kyle got Tom Compton to block. Is it just looking at Trent Williams and saying, "Oh, well, I better do that"?
It's really interesting. I talked to a couple offensive linemen about that, and their blocking scheme is so well designed that they basically figured out, like, what is the most comfortable block for an offensive lineman to make, right? It's when the play is going, you're going back against play side, so you have all the leverage, you can come down on your opponent, and they've figured out a way to basically allow all of their offensive linemen to do that. Every single one of them can make the most comfortable block in football on every play. And so that's awesome, and you're going to do it better than anybody else. And so you can also transform lesser offensive linemen as a result of that.
All right, Connor, I need your read on, I know we're focused on week 18, and then we're focused on the playoffs. But truth be told, we never take our eye off down the road. And we've done a lot of that this year with Jalen Hurts as Eagles quarterback. He is winning the hearts and minds of Philadelphia fans. I think that includes the coaching staff and the general manager and the owner. But you never really know. Yesterday, Russell Wilson said the plan is to win more Super Bowls, and the plan is to do so in Seattle. Aaron Rodgers just last week said he's got an improving relationship with Brian Gutekunst, the general manager. So he so desperately wanted to get away from this offseason and ended up back in Green Bay. If those two guys are staying put, are the Eagles going to stay with Jalen Hurts because, there's no questions asked, he's just that good, or because Deshaun Watson and all his legal problems might be the only quarterback who's actually going to change teams this offseason?
Yeah, and I think that's going to force some teams into a precarious situation. I mean, you look at what Miami essentially tried to do was like step in and force settle like litigation before the trade deadline. And like, what a horrendous thing to try to attach your franchise to, I think that until that litigation is complete, until all those women have their day in court, I don't think anybody should even think about pursuing a trade with him, that's been my philosophy all along. I think there's probably a lot of smart general managers who agree with me. If you're Howie Roseman, like, I don't think you're going to get the credit that you deserve for what you just pulled off, and maybe there was a little bit of luck involved there, but they haven't shown necessarily an ability to be tender with anybody. I mean, Doug Peterson got tossed out after a couple years after winning the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz got tossed. If you're Jalen Hurts, you probably just think, hey, right now I'm the quarterback of the Eagles. Probably next year I'm the quarterback of the Eagles. But I don't know what's going to happen with these 3 first-round picks. I don't know if they trade them to be able to be first in line in the 2023 draft when that quarterback class is going to be a lot more robust than this year's. We don't know what their long-term plan is. They might not know what their long-term plan is, but I think if you're Hurts, you just got to take it day by day, unfortunately. And he's been used to that since his days at Alabama.
All right, Connor, week 18, as Jody said, so 14 teams are going to move forward. That means 18 teams are not, and Black Monday looms. How many are we going to have? How many? We know we have 2. How many more are coming?
It's going to be interesting. I think that there is going to be, Chicago and Denver, I think, are pretty likely to be open there. So that brings your total to 4. I don't think the Giants, as hard as Joe Judge is making this decision.
He's making it.
I don't think the Giants are making a move. I think David Culley might hang on in Houston. I've heard all along that they're not going to make a move unless the one person they want comes available. I don't know who that person is, but I think if you're David Culley, you deserve a chance to come back. You've outcoached that team beyond anybody's wildest expectations. I think you deserve to come back next year. So I think it could be a relatively quiet.
Mike Zimmer, you got to get Mike Zimmer.
Yep, I do think that that's probably going to happen. But other than that, like, you know, I mean, we're usually used to 7 or 8 openings a year. I think this could be closer to 5, and with the caveat that we always get that one surprise, and we don't know what that's going to be. And, you know, I've been talking to some colleagues about that. And, you know, I just keep thinking about some of our older coaches, like, you know, Pete Carroll is 70. Does he want to stick around if Russell Wilson leaves and rebuild that team, especially at a point in time where some college would pay him $20 million a year to sit there and be, you know, Mac Brown, basically? You know, I think that would be pretty attractive. You know, if I'm Sean Payton, do I look at the Saints and say, do I really want to sit here for 3 years and try to figure out a quarterback and try to come back and do all this stuff and compete with Tom Brady in this division for forever? You know, probably not. I don't know. And even like someone like the Chiefs, it's like, Andy Reid, if you win a second Super Bowl with these guys, you know, do you say like, okay, you know, what else is there left to do? I've secured my place in Canton. I've locked this thing down. I've had my fun with Patrick Mahomes. Now let's let some of these other guys take over and do some stuff. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't know if any of those things are necessarily going to happen, but you think about some of these older coaches, wonder like at what point are they like, okay, you know, I'd like to hang out at the beach for a year.
Quick follow up on that, Connor. Surprise wise, certain thing would have to happen, but if the Cowboys are one and done and disappointing, and everybody is Jacksonville's already sniffing around Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore, does Jerry think about, I want to keep one of these guys? Could that be a surprise?
I've thought about that a lot, especially Kellen Moore. I mean, Kellen Moore has occupied the place in his heart that Jason Garrett used to have, you know, and you remember when teams came after Jason Garrett, he ran Wade Phillips out of town in order to promote Jason Garrett to the head coaching job. And, you know, I think that Kellen Moore is probably of that level of, you know, appreciated in Dallas. And so I'm very interested to see what happens there. You know, I think that Mike McCarthy is definitely, you know, you don't know what he has in terms of a benefit of the doubt. I would say similarly, like Cliff Kingsbury is another one, like he still hasn't redone the contract yet, had 2 late season collapses, like didn't play well necessarily down the stretch this year. Is that a team where like the Cardinals are like, okay, we've seen the best of what we can do here. We have a pretty good coaching staff even without him. So.
All right, John followed up by staying in division with the Cowboys. I want to do the same with the Giants, which we touched on briefly. But let me give you a scenario. And I do shows occasionally in New York. And I've been saying this for 5 months, 6 months, going back to the summer. Yeah, we know the general manager's gone. Dave Gettleman's going to get his walking papers. They've come out and said Joe Judge is going to stay. Well, that could change. But it should change solely because they've hired a very good general manager / president to take over the organization. And he should be the one to make the call on the head coach or not. Is there a guy out there? And the NFL has the same rules as other sports where if you offer someone a promotion, so I guess you could make him president and you could cherry pick somebody else's general manager, perchance, if they have a president within their organization. Either available already, out of the loop this year, or someone on another team that you could legally potentially pull out of there. Who's the best person to take over the power chair of the New York Giants and decide on their head coach and their quarterback going forward?
I don't know, because if I'm a general manager, I'm not taking that job. You know, I think that's a hard job. And even if they give you the say so on the coaching of the year, because some people are saying, well, they've already decided your judges stay. Well, then you got no chance to get any kind of a general manager. If the first thing you tell them when you offer them the job is, by the way, you're keeping the coach and you're keeping the quarterback, it's like, okay, see you later, bye. So give him his power base. You still think it's a bad job and nobody really good will take it? I think if they were to offer that kind of power, then I think I'd be interested. I don't think the Mara family is ever going to give up that kind of power. I don't think they're going to, because it's not, you know, that is a family run operation and they've been doing that. They've been doing things their way for decades. And I think that they would have a really hard time passing off that kind of power. Now, maybe this is the year that John finally realizes that he has to back away a little bit and hand off some of the reins, but I would imagine them still trying to promote from within, find somebody within their confines that can jibe with Joe Judge. It's going to be wildly unpopular. I can tell you that right now, but I think that's the situation you've boxed yourself into, because you don't want to fire another coach after 2 years. You're afraid of the perception of that. And so, you have to kind of pacify everybody. And, this is sort of the way that I think you have to do it. Could I see them poaching, I've heard like Monty Ossenfort from Tennessee bandied around, like that's a guy who knows Joe Judge, and like, could you poach someone like that, like an assistant GM somewhere else, and semi-promote him, but with the understanding that he's got to work in the confines of it? Maybe. But if I'm a rising GM candidate, I'm not taking that job, because much less than coaches, GMs, you only get one shot at this. You're not going to be a second-time GM in the NFL.
Well, yeah. That's some GMs get to hire poor coaches, Connor, but that's another story. I last one for me, and everybody read Connor does a tremendous job at SI.com, Monday Morning Quarterback. Check out his Eagles piece, which is tremendous on Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen's offense. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, I often talk about spoiled fan bases. I start with Green Bay, who's had 30 plus consecutive years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. They don't know how the other half lives. Continuity is always best, and that is best observed in Pittsburgh, which has had 3 coaches since 1968. 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame. The other one's going in the Hall of Fame. 15 consecutive years now, Mike Tomlin has not had a losing season. But some people in Pittsburgh, and they're on life support, they still have a chance, but they're not going to make the playoffs. Some people want to move on from Mike Tomlin. Would you even consider that if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers?
God, no. And I've heard some Steelers fans saying this for the better part of, 5 years now. And like, you can show them Mike Tomlin and Bill Cowher's winning loss records side by side, and they're almost identical. Mike Tomlin's is a little better, and they still are like, we want Bill Cowher back. And I don't understand it. I've never understood it. If Mike Tomlin were to be let go and put on the market, like I know, like half the teams in the NFL would fire their head coach to try to get him. He is one of the 4 best head coaches in the NFL. I mean, look at what Antonio Brown is like now. And Tomlin handled that for 10 years. Yeah. Le'Veon Bell in that situation. I mean, that locker room was full of consistently explosive personalities. Big Ben was not a classic leader. He was not, the take the reins guy and give the speech guy. That was all Mike Tomlin, like all of it. And, I'm just fascinated by Steelers fans in general. Like, what more could you possibly want out of your head coach? And, that's a franchise that's a fan base that needs to see what life is like. I mean, I grew up a Browns fan. This is, it can get so much worse,
Connor, it doesn't matter to us whether you write another complimentary article about the Eagles or not. We're going to try and get you back on once the playoffs get underway. Appreciate you coming on with us today. Have a great weekend. Enjoy.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Connor Orr does an outstanding job for Sports Illustrated. And yes, go to SI.com. While you're at it, you can read Kracz and McMullen, but specifically the interesting article he wrote about the Philadelphia Eagles this week on their website. All right, J-Mac and I coming back. We got to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Good day, everyone. It's Joe Kracz from the JAKIB Media Network here at Neck of the Woods. So excited to introduce Kraczy's Coat Check, a cold IPA. It's just an incredible thing. I'm in my 18th year of Kraczy's Coats, and with Brian's help and Frank coming together here at Neck of the Woods, Kraczy's Coat Check, a cold IPA, was born on this day. We'll celebrate it on January 11th, and everyone is invited to enjoy or to meet and experience the entire JAKIB Media team and Also, experience Krause's Coat Check, a cold IPA. Gentlemen, a toast, I think, to you for producing Krause's Coat Check here at Neck of the Woods. Cheers. Cheers.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Birds 365 with your Mac and Mac guys, Nicole and McDonald. All right, the time is running out on this Football Friday show, which means we've got just enough time left to make our picks on the Eagles game tomorrow. Usually we have to make them for Sunday, and we're already bumping up against the game because the game was flexed to Saturday. Johnny Mac, I know you put your pick in already for Philly Voice, and I've been done this all year. Usually you stick with your Philly Voice pick, but sometimes you change it up, at least maybe the score. Usually you stick with the team that you thought was going to win the game. But we'll give you the option of potentially changing the score if you see fit. Yeah, you had the Cowboys winning this week, which really doesn't mean anything because we don't know. We're throwing darts at a dartboard here because we don't even know who's going to play, but we kind of got to do it anyway. So give us your line of reasoning as to why you think who's going to win the game on Saturday.
My line of reasoning is I think the Cowboys are going to play more of their key players for a little bit lengthier of a time. So, I mean, generally they're the better team to begin with. So if it was full strength versus full strength, I'd pick the Cowboys. If they're going to play more of their best players for a longer period of time, you would think they would have the advantage. But yeah, this is a complete dart at the dartboard. I think I had the Cowboys winning 24-16, something of that nature. I think the Eagles are going to struggle offensively because I don't think they're going to play anybody. And if they don't play anybody on the offensive line, you lose your strength and you start to have some issues, and the lack of playmakers will show up a little bit.
Well, I'm going to make a pick on this game just like you did. May not want to make it because it is just a flip of a coin and a guess. And I've been pretty damn good with the Eagles picks. Just winners straight up here on Birds 365, 13-3.
Yeah, and so am I. I'm rock solid.
And one of those was with an asterisk because on Friday I picked the Saints to beat the Eagles, but they had a bunch of players that were eligible to come off the COVID list, and none of them did. So they didn't have a quarterback. They didn't have their running back, Alvin Kamara. If you had asked me on Sunday morning, I would have said, yeah, I think the Eagles will probably find a way to win. But I did make the pick on Friday, so I got to stand by that Saints loss. I lost early in the season, the Carolina game. I thought they got beat, and they won. And, of course, the upset by the Giants. No one had the Eagles losing to the Giants a couple of
I don't even remember the games I got wrong, so I give you credit for that.
I do. I remember the one.
I'm glad people keep track of that for me.
13-3 this year, and yeah, I'm with it. I think the Cowboys are going to win. Certainly, I think they're going to stay with their starters longer, and I think they might push the envelope a little bit because Jerry said so. When Jerry said so in Dallas, everybody listens, including his head coach. I think he may play them longer than John McMullen or Jody McDonald or anybody else, because we've got our opinion about how Nick Sirianni should handle it. It's the same thing for the Cowboys. But Jerry is on record as saying we need to get back to playoff form. So I think it'll be more than just a little bit longer. I think it'll be significantly longer. That's why I think it's going to be a significant loss that means nothing for the Eagles. Doesn't derail, doesn't change. Yeah, they finish up 9-8 rather than 10-7. Everybody like the double-digit wins. Doesn't matter. If they go ahead and win the first game of the playoffs as an underdog, then nobody's going to look back and go, yeah, but damn, we lost in week 18 to the Cowboys. Forget about it. And forget about winning this week. I think the Cowboys are going to win, probably by double-digit points, as a matter of fact. All right, JM, you got your mindset ready yet? You got your mind already laid out for a Saturday night game?
No, man. I'm right now. My feet are where they are, and that's gotta be. I gotta get through the snow first, and then I can
go out and shovel
Saturday.
and think about the Eagles and the Cowboys, and then get ready for some football. And you will be on the post-game show here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel on Saturday, right?
And 6abc.com. And yeah, we got to get it in. Like, share, subscribe. If you like what we're doing. And how can you not? We had Ed Kracz, Connor Orr, giving you everything.
Both of which were good. Except what did Kracz do that I got to pimp him about Brandon Brooks again? I forget why you.
I think I insulted you, and then you insulted.
Oh yeah, it might have been you, and I took it out on Ed. That's right. Yes, do so here for us, McDonald and McMullen. Even if you like the post-game show, yeah, do it for them on time. But do it right now for us. We got to get our algorithm up. So hit that like button. Even though we just picked the Cowboys, both of us picked the Cowboys to beat the Eagles. Come on, we got to preserve our.
We need a little blue pill for our algorithm. That's what we need, Jeff.
We're both 13-3, so we'll either both be 13-4 or 14-3. Because we're both unfortunately picking.
Yeah, we got to shift up in the playoffs. We gotta go against it to have a champion.
John, as long as they're not playing that Brady guy, they have a chance to win when the playoffs.
There we go. We should have a championship belt made up. Maybe I might be going to Monday Night Raw. So maybe.
Oh, you're killing me! You invited me to go, and I can't go. I'm gonna be on WIP Monday night.
Yeah, we'll see.
Killing me, Smalls. All right, that'll do it for us. Best of luck to the Eagles. Hope they win. We'll find out that much more by the time Saturday rolls around. But next week is going to be very good here on Birds 365. Not bad for a first-year show. Going into the playoffs after the team went 4-11-1 the year before. When they asked us if we want to do the show together, I didn't. Okay, well, at least we'll have to work real hard after January, whatever, because the season will be over and done with. No, we got an easy week coming up next week talking about Eagles in the playoffs. Hope you're back here with us on Birds 365 next week.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.